Hello and good evening, everyone. This is Dr. Farhan Ali. Today, we just want to go through some basic topics of economics, demand, law of demand, and market demand. One thing to remember here is that we will not go in more details, but later on, we will discuss all these topics in more details and at advanced level. So today, we just want to start from individuals or household demand. There are two basic conditions of household demand. Any wish, desire, or want of a household or individual following two conditions. Number one is willingness to purchase, and number two is ability to purchase is termed as demand. If any one of these two conditions is not satisfied, that wish, desire, or want would remain same but not demand. Further, we want to have a look on the factors affecting household demand. On number one, we have the price of the product or service. Any change in the price of the product or service would bring change in household demand, but in opposite direction, meaning that if the price of the product or service increases, the household demand of that product or service decreases, or vice versa. The second, we have household income. Any change in household income would bring direct change in household demand, meaning that if household income increases, then household demand will also increase. Number three is total wealth. If there is an increase in total wealth of household or individual, it will bring direct change in household demand. Number four is price of related products. Any change in price of related products would also bring change in household demand, but in opposite direction. Number five is taste and preferences of household or individual demand would bring change in household demand. Number six is expectations of households or individuals about future income, prices, and wealth. Any change in one of these or all these factors would also bring change in household demand. After discussing the determinants of household demand, we will move towards the law of demand. Keeping other factors constant or fixed, what are those other factors which we have discussed right now earlier? The income, price of related goods, taste and preferences, expectations. If all these factors remain constant, the law of demand states that there is a negative or inverse relationship between the price of a good or service and quantity demanded of that particular good or service. For more understanding, we can have a look on this graph. On the vertical axis, we have price per calls in dollars, and on the horizontal axis, we have quantity demanded. As we see on the vertical axis, we move from $15 to $10. The person makes one call. As we move further downward on vertical axis to $7, the person makes 3 calls in a day or in a month. As we further move to $3.5, the person makes 7 calls in a day or in a month. And this process goes on to $0.50. When the price is $0.50, the person makes 25 calls in a month or in a day. So here we can easily observe as the price goes down, the number of calls in a month or in a day increases, showing that there is a negative relationship between the price per call and number of calls made in a month. Verifies the law of demand, showing the inverse relationship between price per call and the number of calls made in a month or in a day. By joining all these points, we get a curve which is downward sloping and convex to the origin. This curve is called as demand curve, showing the negative or inverse relationship between price and quantity demanded. Further, as we move from 7 to $3.5 on the vertical axis, we can easily observe the number of calls increases in response to the decrease in prices. But the thing to notice is that we remain on the same demand curve. We move along the same demand curve. There is no shift in the demand curve upward or downward. If there is a price per call is $3.5, then a person makes 7 calls. If the price goes up to $7, the person makes 3 calls, which is less than before. This shift from $3.5 price to $7, this shift in economics called the contraction in quantity demanded because of the increase in prices. In other words, if we move from $7 to $5, the number of calls increase, then in economics, it will be called as extension in demand, showing that when the price increases, quantity demanded decreases, and we remain on the same demand curve, moving leftward. If the price decreases, quantity demanded increases, we remain on the same demand curve, but move rightward. This is called extension in demand. So further, we can also have a look again, the same explanation. When the price goes down from P0 to P1, the quantity demanded increases from Q0 to Q1, but remaining on the same demand curve, we move rightward, and this is called extension in quantity demanded. Further, if there is change in quantity demanded due to other factors rather than price of that commodity or good or service, this is called change in demand, and in this case, demand curve shifts upward or downward. If the demand curve shifts upward, in economics, we call it increase in demand. And if the demand curve shifts downward due to other factors, not the price of that specific good or service, in economics, we call it as decrease in demand. So here we need to make the difference. If the change in quantity demanded is due to price of that specific good or service, then we move along the same demand curve, rightward or leftward. If we move rightward, then we call it extension in demand. And if we move leftward, then we call it contraction in demand. And in other case, if there is change in quantity demanded due to other factors rather than price, then the demand curve shifts upward or downward. If it shifts upward, then we call increase in demand. And if it shifts downward, then we call decrease in demand. So further, we move from household demand to market demand. In market, there is a large number of households or individuals. So to get the market demand, we need to add all the quantity demanded of goods and services of all the consumers at available prices. So when we add up all the quantity demanded of services and goods of all the consumers at a given price, then we can have a market demand curve. So this is the short details about some basic topics of economics. If you have any questions, you are welcome to ask. Thank you so much.